I'm back with my good friend Kai Van Bodhi. What's up, y'all? Kai, do you remember being a kid when you were outgrowing the old shoes? They're getting tight. It's time to get new ones. You go to the store, you get new ones, and your toes don't quite reach the end. Like you haven't quite grown into the new ones yet. Can you remember this?
Yes, I can.
And does any part of you feel that way now? Do you identify parts of your life where you're outgrowing
Well,
the old and stretching into the new?
I can remember holding on to shoes when they were way too tight because I just loved the way they looked and whatever. And then I can remember getting those new shoes that were a little too big sometimes, but mom liked to do that, stay ahead of the game. So, yes, absolutely. I think I'm bumping into that in so many different areas in my life right now.
Yeah, me too. And I actually have come to love this space in my life because I know it's signaling growth and change. Although I haven't always loved it, a lot of times in my life it's felt really confusing. And so I'm excited to talk to our audience today about that and see where everybody else is in terms of really feeling like we're outgrowing the old timelines. I would say even collectively here on the planet, it's very clear that we're outgrowing old paradigms. And we're still reaching for the new ones. We're innovating. We're figuring out what our new lives get to look like. Kai, what are you noticing in the world of transformation and outgrowing the old and into the new?
Well, the one that's up for me is that about 5 years ago, a Japanese scientist discovered this substance that you could inject into an animal or a human, and it would cause the stem cells of that area to go back to the 20-year-old version of the human.
Oh, yeah.
And and it had a very weak effect, and it didn't kind of replicate. And just this year, they took that into AI, and they had AI go full ham on it, and it showed them what to do, and they did it. And now, there's going to be a modality that will put your body back to 20 years old or in a joint, you know? And so it's like, you know, I personally have outgrown the BS of the healthcare system and what we deal with here. And I'm excited about what's coming down the line naturally, but also with the help of innovation. Like, we really are a generation of people that will live way longer than we ever imagined. And I don't think I don't think there's any force that's going to withhold that from the public. I think it's already happening. And it's going to come to the wealthy first, but it will trickle down.
Yeah, I mean, these shifts and changes are so exciting. It's like they've been prophesied for a while. We've been feeling into them. You and I tapped into them on the last episode of what does it look like to shift and change our frequency so that we're open and receptive and inviting and expecting the good to happen, right? And I just talked on my show today, Akashic Answers with Emily. CERN shut down their Large Hadron Collider, which that thing was stabilizing lower timeline frequencies. And we should begin noticing more ease, more flow, more ability to tap into our abundance. I'm super excited about that. And I think it's also important to talk about the tension that what it really looks like. Like that's the rainbows and unicorn part of our soul growth and what we get to step into. But I found it's really valuable to like talk about the gritty parts of it that others might not be talking about. And like some things that I've noticed in my life, and I have some questions here. Like these questions really helped me identify the time in my life when my soul was growing. Have you ever felt grateful but restless? Maybe you can identify where you're noticing that right now. Have you ever accomplished things that once felt impossible, but somehow they don't satisfy anymore? Yes. Does your intuition keep showing you glimpses of another life or another timeline? Are you noticing that relationships feel like they're shifting? Certain friendships don't align anymore. You're questioning everything that you thought you wanted. I love that question, Kai, because I can remember a time in my life not so long ago when I was in this liminal state of transformation and I was literally questioning everything. And it was at a moment when I felt like my dreams were totally coming true. It was last year when we were at Mount Shasta. And as you know, like I've been pilgrimaging to Shasta with other pilgrims for this will be year number 7. Um, in year number 6, for those of you who don't know, I'm a former Hollywood actress, actress turned psychic. Don't let that scare you. But my old Hollywood love of storytelling and documenting really, like I had an opportunity to bring forward those skills, those passions of mine. And we shot a docu-series. We shot the principal footage for a docu-series about the work that we're doing on Mount Shasta last year. And Kai, I'm standing like I think you and Grace had the participants out and you guys were doing some qigong in the field there, and the cameras are all set up, and I'm hiding back in the woods. I'm gonna like emerge over the bridge like in my dress, blowing, flowing, right? And you would think that I would be so like even as I say it now, like I can tap into more excitement than I actually felt in the moment. I was literally thinking to myself, like there was so much stress to get to that point. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I could just be waiting tables. And I also, my higher self noticed my human saying that and chuckled a little bit and said, it's data, Emily, it's data. And I was able to reconcile those pieces. But although I found myself like, what the heck? I'm in a moment where I should be experiencing what it feels like for my wildest dreams to come true. And I'm questioning everything. Have you ever had a time in your life, like what's your personal story of
Well, first, I mean that is so brilliant, because it's like my experience is this: is that as soon as we set a new standard, a new table for what's possible, like for you, the documentary, and actually
Mhm.
having the work get out to more people as a story, using the Hollywood part of you that loves to tell stories, it's gonna come connected to all the limiting beliefs, and I can totally relate. Like just recently, it's like I really have been like, just to be transparent, like I survive by doing high ticket coaching one on one,
Mhm.
and what I really want to do is have a tribe
Yeah.
where it can be much lower ticket but more people. That's where my energy is most comfortable and excited, is as a teacher of practices that allow people to get what they want in life. And so recently, after I signed 2 new high ticket clients, I immediately had those same thoughts. I should just go back into the acupuncture office and treat 5 patients a day and then go sit by the lake. Like that's what comes up, and I get it. And I think it's like there's just all these beliefs that are in our unconscious that are constantly up for negotiation.
I love that. Beliefs up for negotiation to me, like AKA identity shift. Invitation for shedding the old identity and becoming the new version of ourselves. And I would say like at the core of what causes our soul to start like to outgrow our body, we're ready for identity shift, right? Um, and that requires our nervous systems to grow. It requires our vision to grow. It requires our relationships to grow. Um, I, I'd love to hear like what would you say? What's your diagnosis for why the soul gets to these points where it's outgrowing our current timeline?
Well, I think first of all, I think there's more than one type of soul on this planet. And I think that there are certain souls that they're here, whether they're new or they're old, they're here for the human experience, and there's not a huge agenda for the soul. There's not a
Mhm.
big mission or a big purpose. And souls like that will fairly comfortably stay in some type of mainstream job and make a living and have some kids, and their soul will be satisfied with the human experience, being in a body, being able to make love and eat food and hike. And then I think there's souls that come here with a mission.
Mhm.
And when you come and you have a mission, there's not as much leeway. And if you're not living what your soul came here to do, there are going to be more signs and symptoms and roadblocks and accidents until you figure out. And I've said this recently, like it is for those type of people, it is so much less painful to surrender to your mission than it is to try to avoid it. Because those people's souls will not let them waste a year or even 6 months going down the wrong path.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got to be open to kind of hearing the signal of our soul and read between the lines. And that's where I think, not to jump ahead, but I think I know that the practices are the medicine.
Mm-hmm.
The practices that take us into receptivity to our soul. There is nothing more important than that. If even if it's even as a peak performance strategy,
Yep.
but in and of itself, to listen more deeply to the still small voice within, and then have the courage to follow it.
Yep, that comes with cultivated practice, which we're going to do a little bit here with you guys in a hot second. First of all, though, I got really inspired when you talked about the signal from your soul, and you've been using verbiage that has lit me up recently, about here. You want to hear the signal, not the noise. Am I getting that right? The signal, not the noise. So the signal from your soul, give us like a more tangible example of like, what are some of the soul signals of the people that you're working with? What are some people experiencing?
Well, one, I mean, just had a really intensive immersion with a client, and one of the noise was feeling like there's all these different parts of ourselves, and they each want slightly different things for our life, and the noise is feeling like we have to choose between those parts. And those, and when you do the deeper work, as I like to say, sometimes you got to let Humpty Dumpty fall apart so you can put him back together again, or put her back together again. What you realize is that all those parts want the same thing. And there is a life path that can bring that. It's not about sacrifice. It's
Mm-hmm.
about integration
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the clearer vision of how that works. That's one. Another one, and this is just for me personally, is that my higher self has a loving East Coast kind of bro. Like when I hear my higher self, he has such a good sense of humor, and he tells it like it is. And there's this levity, this East Coast levity of like, dude, are you really gonna settle for that? Like, you really think that's all you're capable of? Come on, bro. It's so kind, it's so direct, and it has this kind of healthy sarcasm. And I've come to know that that's not the part of me that is doom and gloom and afraid I'm gonna lose everything. Or yeah, there's other voices in there that are noise.
Mm-hmm.
And even the noise sometimes deserves attention, because it could be like a younger part that needs to be integrated. But
Data. Mm-hmm.
but you don't let noise drive. You will get in an accident. If the noise is driving, you're going to crash the car, or you're going to end up somewhere you don't want to be.
Yeah, David Mailer talks about if you don't have clear coordinates, you end up on the island called "How the fuck did I get here?"
Yeah, the island of I hate my life. And how the fuck did I get it? Yeah, that's so true.
Well, I have another like digging into the psyche of humans, or maybe you can answer from personal experience. I'm gonna dig my psyche for this too. Why do you think we keep reaching for the old life when we know it doesn't fit? Why do we go back to it?
Because familiarity and identity. The strongest force in all of our lives, whether we know it or not, is our identity. And the identity is a whole bunch of I am beliefs that are usually below the conscious awareness. We don't even question them anymore. And I mean, and look, you can get inspiration and build a new business, but if the old identity is in that new business, you're going to have new, better, different versions of the same problems and the same lack of satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we see this all the time. In my work, we call it, the golden handcuffs or the golden prison. It's like sometimes your life is so financially successful or looks good on paper, but if your soul is not satisfied with it, like, that's why some people reach the pinnacle of success and still end their own lives, because they were trying to fill it from the wrong direction. And then they got everything anybody could want, like fame. And I think of Kurt Cobain with Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he could not have been more handsome. His music was so authentic to himself. And yet he'd reached that pinnacle and he didn't feel any more whole or complete.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is really like the impact of this problem and challenge. Like, if we don't figure out how to really feel like we are creating value and impact and, experiencing, like you said, the joys of being in the physical, which include things like we've got to stimulate our imagination and come together in collaboration together, right? And do these practices that help us to check out from the distortion. Like, we don't want to be plugged into the distortion that is the Maya, that is the illusion. And that's one thing that I love about what we get to do, and how we get to hang out and innovate and create here together on the planet, is we get to create the systems and the structures and the paradigms and the invitations to invite like ourselves and those who are also changing the planet into like, what is this new neighborhood of how we show up and support each other and really change the planet? Like, what does it look like on a day-to-day basis, boots on the ground?
Yeah, well, just going back, I heard it said in a new way, that, the secret of life is to find something that you're passionate about that can be of service to others, that feels like play. And then when you do that, you will not, like, I know it sounds like a cliche, you will outwork everybody and it won't feel like work.
Mm-hmm.
And just to ground that, like, let's talk about the Shasta trip, last
Oh
year's
yeah.
or this year's, right? What are we going to do? Will there be some psychedelics available? Probably. Are we going to hike and go into the most beautiful place? Yes. Are we going to sit with indigenous wisdom keepers who've been doing? Yeah, of course we are. Are we going to be on an adventure? Yes. Are we going to do breath work? Yes. Are we going to be around a mate? Yeah. Yeah. See, that's like my camp counselor meets my spiritual guide meets my love of indigenous culture. Like, it's not work, but oh my God, does it work on you? You know?
Yeah.
And that's like, we all get to find our version of that. Like, what is the work that doesn't feel like work? And I
Yeah.
think that's also true in our spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, find the spiritual practice that's fun for
Yeah.
you, interesting.
Yeah. And it's woven into the lore and the history of Mount Shasta. So the Telosians, so for y'all who don't know, let me share with you a little bit of the magic of Mount Shasta. So inside of Mount Shasta, there is a fourth dimensional city of light called Telos. Okay, Telos is where the refugees, mostly Lemurian refugees, but some Atlantean refugees as well, the ones that stayed on planet after the cataclysm, went interdimensionally into Mount Shasta to preserve the intelligence, the wisdom, the functioning society of this 5D society. And oh, I got chills from my whole body. And that energy is present. Like, it's an underlying energy signature of what we're downloading there, or maybe I should say what we're uploading. We're uploading it from the land. We're remembering it. Also, the story goes that the Lemurian grandmothers knew about 2,000 years before the cataclysm that it was going to happen. And they began to program the intelligence of the Lemurian society into crystals. So it's not only found this energy, this intelligence found in Lemurian seed crystals, it also is found living inside the granite of Mount Shasta. It's living within our bodies as well. And when we go to Mount Shasta for pilgrimage, we activate those Lemurian codes. And one of the most significant Lemurian codes, and Kai, I realized this, people have mystical experiences of going into Telos. I actually had one. I didn't even know that I had one until this last time that I went to Shasta over the solstice. With the friend that I was traveling with, I was telling him a story about the first time I was in Shasta, and I was meditating at the falls, Bernie Falls, I think it was. Very public place. There were lots of people there. I was practicing something that I learned in acting class called public solitude, where we can just like go into our own space, even though there are other people there. Like, actors need to know how to do that when you're on stage and a bunch of people watching you. So I go like really heavily, deeply connected into this place of public solitude. My eyes are closed. And my guides tell me to open my eyes and do just like what do they call that in the Taoist tradition? I think there's like an official name for it.
I don't know, but I know you're
Like
you're
half
meant
eyes.
to you're meant to have like somewhat open eyes as you
Yeah.
meditate. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And as I open my eyes, all of the people there began to, I'm going to say, it's like information about each one became available to me as I looked at each person. There was this download of knowingness about who they were, what their gifts were, their innate gifts, like what lit them up like a kid they could do all day long that doesn't feel like work. And that became their service, their gift to humanity. And I saw how the society worked in abundance by everybody sharing their gifts. And it was beautiful. Okay. I felt like, okay, that was a really cool meditation of vision. Like I got a revelation of what part of the Lemurian society looks like. That is part of the codes or the culture of the Lemurian society is cultivating each person's unique curiosity and passion and gifts with the understanding they're going to give to society and expand humanity, and it's needed and it creates the abundance, right? And like I just got that. I understood that on a deeper level. What I realized when I was telling this story to my friend going into Shasta, I'm like, oh, hang on a second. That was Telos revealing itself. That was like, some people talk about going into the mountain and getting a tour. This is an example of that plasma energy, that plasma reality shifting and morphing right there around me. And I was getting like a tour of Telos and how it worked just by being there and experiencing from this higher dimensional perception of what life could be like.
I love it.
That's why we love Shasta. One of the reasons we love
Yeah.
Shasta.
Yeah. And that's a lot of these ancient mystery schools. And then thank you to Joseph Campbell for his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the way the earth wakes up is when we all start to realize our own heroic potential in our life. And
Yes.
we start to become the authors of our life, and we start to tell the story that we want to be remembered for, and we start to live that story. And Shasta is a place to do that. And Emily, I I of course am aware of fourth and fifth density, and there are dimensions of reality that
Mm-hmm.
are right here in and among us, and yet they're not perceivable by most people. And I believe, based on the story, that it is possible, and there is a record on history, like the caves of Dominor and these other archaeological sites where it's possible that during some of the cataclysms that people on the third dimensional level moved underground to preserve and protect themselves from whatever was going on. And they brought with them the same wisdom and technology that allowed them to build huge subterranean structures with airflow. And there are remnants of this all over. And Shasta, just looking at Shasta, this may be some swivel in our plans, but like they're in Pluto's cave. Have you been there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
30 to 50 feet in diameter, reaching 80 feet high in certain places. There's volcanic tubes that you can hike miles into the inside of the
I did.
mountain.
I went all the way back this time
Yeah.
because I was telling Grace that I was going there and she goes, "Oh, have you been all the way to the back?" And I'm like, "No, I've been chicken." Although this time we weren't. We went all the way back.
Well, I think that's something
Amazing.
we get to do on one of the hotter days is go hang out in a cave for a while. Like all the good ancestors have done.
Yeah, it's pretty magical. Definitely the energies of Magdalene very present in the cave. Those lower vortexes are definitely where we experience the divine feminine, the nurturing. I just think all the water runs down into the valley. And then we've got the masculine vortexes where you're up high, you've got the expansive vision, you're close to God, you're close to the God mind, you can see more possibility for yourself. So we have quite an adventure ahead, my friends. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I'm super excited.
All right. So in terms of identity shift, and well, actually, let's just drop in with the audience for a second. How many of y'all are pumped up out there? Say hello. Let us know who's watching.
Tamara's on.
Yeah. Kevin Hodak is here.
Kevin.
Yeah. I think like the next question becomes, how do we prepare our bodies to hold the frequency of identity shift and to move through it more effortlessly. Like that's the practice. What do we want to do to help expand our human bodies and our brothers and sisters' ability to hold the frequency of our highest potential? Let's play.
I really appreciate the teaching of the horizontal and the vertical axis of life. It's very dimensional and practical. And on the horizontal axis, we have the information we put into our mind, the books we read, the words we speak to ourselves, and we have a large degree of control over that, despite, thank you to Joe Dispenza for popularizing this. However many thoughts we have a day, let's say it's 100,000 thoughts a day, it might be different number than that, but you know, the vast majority of them are negative or neutral. And there's a very high percentage that are the same thoughts that visit us all the time. And so,
Yep.
so whether we go to Shasta or not, we want to learn to change the channel. So tune into a different station. And we can do that with our posture, with our breathing. We can do that with our environment. We can do that with audios and meditations. So that's one. The next part of the vertical axis is our heart and our emotions, which are primarily magnetic and have that 60 times more influence on the brain than vice versa. So then it's like, are we in gratitude? And just recently, as I've been diving into burnout prevention, as one of my best friends is developing a program for corporate leadership to avoid burnout or recover from burnout. And one of the things that this author reminded me of is something I call conductance. And so she was talking about how most of us have a child or a pet or a place in nature. Like yesterday, Emily, I took a mental health day.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I did is I threw the paddleboard in the car and I took my 5-year-old, soon to be 5-year-old son out, paddled out to an island in the middle of the lake with pine trees and just no phone, just my son, water, sunlight, trees. There were people there with dogs and boats. It was so good to
Yeah.
just change the station. And it brought me into gratitude for my life, for the paddleboard, for the lake, for the community. And so there, so many of us, especially if we're driven or we're in a dark place, we may have lost connection to gratitude and joy. And that's very Abraham Hicks, and it can sound very woo, but it is so effing true, because gratitude and joy are the most healing and regenerative emotions. And so, especially if it's dark and especially if we're off path, you better find a way to access gratitude and joy so you can deal with the choices that are ahead of you. And then finally, as we go down the vertical axis, we end up in our belly and our sexual energy. And so there's a whole tantric place in this where, for women, it's about opening that pleasure pathway, not to have babies, not to please a partner, but just for the sake of moving their energy in this sacred way. And for men, we've got to learn to have those pleasurable experiences without losing our essence. And then there's food, whether it's fasting or breath work or eating the foods that are of higher vibration. So we can almost always have a massive influence on those three centers. And then we go into the horizontal: relationships, financial needs, schedules, renegotiating work, setting boundaries, all that shit that's out of our control, but we
Mhm.
can control how we show up to it.
Right on. All right, cool. Well, why don't I open the records and get us into the space where we can really work with our patterning, our programming, and then I'll turn it over to you and you can like bring joy into those centers for us and we can just restabilize and learn to hold those frequencies. Sound good?
Perfect. I'm going to turn my camera off as you take us into the records. I'll be right here though. Okay.
Okay. Awesome. All right, everybody, I'm going to invite you to sit up. Well, I'm just going to make myself big and take up the whole screen. Invite you to sit up nice and straight, feeling all four corners of your feet on the floor, tucking your tailbone and chin under, elongating your spine, laying your palms up, open and receptive on your lap. And I'm realizing we may have some new people here, so I'm going to just briefly explain what the Akashic records are and what to expect when we go into them. Okay. So, for those of you who are new, welcome. So happy you're here. The Akashic records are the realm of consciousness that hold all information, past, present, all possible futures, and is recorded from a neutral perspective. We all have an Akashic record. Okay. And when we tap into our Akashic record, we can ask questions. We can do work on our bodies that help to anchor in new patterns from the level of the quantum. Truly, this is also known as God mind. Those of you who have studied or experienced Christianity, I grew up in the Christian church. This is known as the Book of Life. And so we're entering into a very sacred space today. And I'm excited to take you guys in. All right, so I'm going to invite you to synchronize your breath with me as we create a coherent field that will support all of us in receiving activation, transmission, and intelligence today. Take a deep breath in through your nose, creating space. Deep breath in. Good. Pausing at the top of the breath. Let that spaciousness integrate into your body, your mind, your emotions. Good. A nice slow exhale, sending space into the field. Pause at the bottom of the breath. These pauses are where we're experiencing a lot of recalibration. Okay, now deep inhale through the nose. Calling light into the body. Good. Fill the lungs up with air. Good. Pause at the top. Turn the awareness inward and notice every cell of your body radiating with rainbow colored light. You're remembering that you are a being of light. Good. Nice slow exhale. And feel the joy of your lightness of being as you exhale. Good. Pausing at the bottom. Third deep breath in. Calling your consciousness into the now moment. Good. Letting go of everything that happened before and after this moment. As you gently exhale and following the breath with the awareness. Arriving at the end of the exhale, fully present. Ready to work in your Akashic records. Ready to reprogram your baseline frequency to hold more joy, more gratitude. You can let your breath return to normal. Turn your awareness inward. Activate the crystalline tube of light that runs up and down your spine. Anchoring it into the core of Mother Earth. Good. And then sending it out the top of your head all the way up through the layers of space and time, exiting the universe, exiting the multiverse. Inhale as you anchor into the Akash. And setting an intention that as you exhale, your body will acclimate to this high frequency energy. And I want you to open up the flow of this channel. Give your directive, your permission for the intelligence of Mother Earth to flow up this channel. It flows all the way up through the body, up into the Akash. And give your permission, the directive for your intelligence to flow down the crystalline tube of light, down through the body, down into Mother Earth. And as these energies begin to intermingle and move through this circuitry anchored from heaven to earth, your body becomes a channel, a beacon of embodied intelligence and inspiration, nudging you, moving you, inviting you, compelling you to move towards more timelines of more joy and more potential. And we open ourselves that those become within our reach today. Dropping the consciousness from the mind into the heart, we'll sound the 5 sacred ohms, opening the Akashic records. With this ohm, I relax my body. If you're doing this for the first time with me, you can ohm with me when you hear me ohming. That will prepare your body to receive the transmission, integrate and stabilize in the frequencies that are available for you today. With this ohm, I relax my mind. With this ohm, I release my ego. With this ohm, I call in the light. With this Om, I open the Akashic records of Emily Suzanne Harrison. And I want you to repeat your full name, and then we'll Om together. The records are now open. Feel the energy of your masters, teachers, loved ones, and guides as they are present to support you in today's work and practice. And the guides are so glad you're here. Kai, I'll turn it over to you.
You gonna bring me back up?
I do. I kicked you out of the screen.
All right.
There you go.
So let's make this super simple. We need things to work fast, and so much of that vertical access work was just done. So I'm gonna offer one of the core beliefs that we could recode into our brain is that you could say to yourself, my essence is enough.
My essence is enough.
You were born perfect, and then layers of wound and mask got put on you, and then at your core, if you've got a small child, you just know how beautiful their authentic essence is. So we're going to take a breath in and out into the brain. So let's start to breathe into our brain where our thoughts are received. Inhale through the nose, draw the breath right up into the brain. And then exhale through a pinhole and just feel the brain light up. Left brain, right brain, whole brain. And just whisper to yourself, what if my essence is enough?
What if my essence is enough?
How would you create if you knew you were already worthy? If you knew you were already perfect? That's the adventure that we created for ourselves is, where would God hide God from God's self? It's right inside your essence. All right, one more breath into the brain. Ready? Powerful inhale. Pull that light right through your nostrils into your hemispheres. Sip through the mouth. Pull the navel and the pelvic floor in and up. Squeeze. And then pinhole exhale and just feel your brain lighting up as you remember your essence is enough. Good. Now let it all go and start to breathe into your heart. We know from neuroscience that gratitude is the most regenerative emotion. So bring your hands palm over palm on your heart and find something, your favorite food, a pet, a lover, a child, something in your life that you could be grateful for. And as you breathe in through the nose, feel the breath come down into your heart. And as you exhale into the heart, like you can breathe through your heart. And start to find that gratitude. Step right into that moment, that play, that toy, that person, until you're starting to smile. Let your heart soften and open, and we'll take a pressurized 2 more breath right into the heart. Ready? Big breath in through the nose, pull it right into your heart. Sip through the mouth, top it off. Swallow it down into the heart through a smile. Relax your shoulders. Squeeze the heart like you're hugging yourself. Pinhole exhale and just let the gratitude overflow. And just sit in that gratitude for a moment. Come on, you're so good at rehearsing misery and stress. You might as well get good at rehearsing gratitude. It's the same skill, but we're sometimes so much more willing to accept the negative side of it. We might as well learn to be good at the positive side. Yeah. All right, bring your hands down to your belly. And each person listening to this, whether you're thinking about coming to Shasta or you've got some other life decision, we're going to work this 3D, 5D model where we're going to take these breaths in, out, out. In through the nose, the belly expands. Out through the nose, the belly goes back. And we're going to do about 15 to 20 breaths, and then we're going to go into silence. And before you start the breath, what is the question you're wanting to hear from your soul? Where has your life gotten too small for your soul? Listen to what's being asked and have a specific situation. All right, here we go. Take another 30 seconds to find your question. Here we go. In, out. It's in the belly. Okay, last breath. Big breath in and hold. Big belly. Sip through the mouth. Swallow saliva. Push the belly out and down. Pinhole exhale, and then we're going to go into the silence for 90 seconds. Remember your question. Let it go so you can hear the signal. Starting to come back, breathing energy up and down your crystalline tube. Breathe energy in, pull it from your pelvic floor, through your belly, through your heart, all the way up to the brain. Exhale into the brain. Now breathe in, draw energy down the central tube, crown to throat, throat to heart, heart to big belly. Hold. Now exhale into your belly and your root. A couple more times, linking up these three centers of intelligence. Breathe in, up, pelvic floor, navel, solar plexus, heart, brain. Hold. Exhale into the brain. One more time. Bring it down. Brain to heart to belly to the root. Now just end right on your heart. That is your quantum instrument of consciousness. Breathe right into the heart. The greatest signal is in the silence. That's where the soul speaks. And a final reminder before we open our eyes that the greatest wisdom traditions have instructed that our prayer or our meditation should always have the yin and the yang, the active and the passive. So we need meditation where we focus on nothing except our point of focus and our breath. And then once we have the capacity to direct our mind's energy, then we can go into active meditation, whether we're praying for world peace or abundance or visualizing. But if you only do one half, you are going to miss out on the power of our spirit and our consciousness to stabilize itself, clear itself, let the karma of cause and effect be interrupted in the stillness. And then from true stillness, going into visualization and manifestation. Mm-hmm. That's the balance that the ancient mystery schools all taught. That most of us, a lot of different spiritual paths have gotten one or the other as if they had to choose, but you don't choose, you do both. So let's come on back.
Yeah. I love practicing with you. It feels so good, Kai. It's just, I go really deep and I get expansive quickly and I love it. It's so much better than doing it by myself.
I mean, yeah, communities of practice is what's going to change the planet.
And I get so excited as you talk about that. That's one of the, and by the way, our records are still open. We'll have a little conversational time here. And I'd love to know from you guys out there in the comments, what are you feeling? What are you noticing? What's available to you now that wasn't available to you before? But I start getting excited. Well, actually, two things that I want to say. Sitting in that silence and being just present in the silence is something that you really brought into my field. And you used languaging in a class that I took of yours one time about how like this is where all of the open loops will just close on their own. And that I have so many open loops as an entrepreneur and as a visionary that that's one of my favorite techniques to get them to close is just surrender and do nothing. I love it.
It's literally, I mean, you probably remember this from the class. Like, and I need all this. That's why I study it. It's not, I'm not the guru on the mountain. I've lived on the mountain, but I'm very clear that my self needed all this. But, it's exactly like what happens with AI right now. And I used to use the analogy of a PC where you'd have to defragment the hard drive. What
Mhm.
does it mean? You use your PC, the old ones, you got files on the desktop, you got files over here, you got videos over here, you've got the computer's code over here. And on the old PCs, you would hit this defrag and you couldn't use your computer. And what it would do is it would organize the hard drive. Oh, these
Mhm.
are all documents. They go together. Oh, these are all program bootstrap files, whatever. Now the same thing happens with AI. You use AI and it has now infinite memory, but it starts to get confused. And you literally have to tell your AI to heal itself, to sleep and dream. And it will start to, it knows how, if you give it time and a command, it will start to say, oh, we did that very inefficiently. We're going to do that differently next time. Let's write new code. Oh my God, we got these 4 agents that have the same responsibilities. We're going to get them all on the same page. So when we meditate on nothing, the brain heals itself.
It's so true. It's so good. And like you required us to practice that together in the class, which is why I do, because I can even know something and still know it's good for me and still resist doing it. But once I started doing it, it's become a practice and like, an anchor in my meditation. And then the thing that I'm super excited about is, can you imagine, like, once we do that on the mountain, get into that place of coherence and health within ourselves and then project our visions out? I mean, that's part of what Shasta does is really, it's the root chakra as well as an ascension point. So it's blasting codes and intelligence into our field that's magnifying it for us. I'm stoked.
Yeah. Yes. Sue, Melinda, Kevin,
Mhm.
please come to Shasta with us. That we've got 4 spots left in the house, and more spots than that for pilgrims that want to find their own place to stay. But
Mhm.
I'm with you, Emily, and this is part of the work that you and I are doing offline. Is like one of my earliest teachers. I'm just gonna give him credit where credit is due. Jeff Primack had these qigong seminars, and we would have up to 3,000 people in a room. And part of the idea was this belief that it is possible to have a sudden enlightenment of the world. If enough people, because as you know, if you just want to do this as a thought experiment, if you waved a magic wand and you healed the environmental problems, and everybody was fed, and you did that, if we still are in separation consciousness, us versus them, Democrat, Republican, whatever it is, we would immediately go back into destroying the fresh start that we had. And this is not a political thing. We're at war with ourselves, the parts of ourselves that feel worthy and unworthy and are trying to prove and all that. And so with that belief, which is fairly supported by science, if you look at those experiments that they did in Washington D.C., where they had a certain number of people meditating, and they were able to reduce crime rates, that was corroborated by the Washington D.C. police in the
Mhm.
middle of summer. And so my point is this: going to a spot where the transmission of energy and consciousness is extremely amplified, and doing your personal healing, and then spending some time in prayer for the dream of humanity to become a beautiful dream of the new earth, could be
Mm.
the highest leverage thing we do. More than where you vote politically, more than volunteering at the soup kitchen, could be to project the consciousness of unity and positive prayer for all of humanity to drink off of. That is what's needed for hope. And last thing, and I'll get off my soapbox, but I believe that this is one of the distorted teachings of Christianity. Yeshua did save humanity. How did he do it? In a time of deep suffering and political injustice, he demonstrated what human potential was.
Mm.
He showed us what we're capable of. You will do these things and greater things still. He showed us that. It wasn't that he died on the cross or was resurrected or whatever you believe about that. Maybe he went to Ethiopia. There's stories about that. Maybe he lived in Kashmir. Maybe he has a bloodline. Whatever happened, he showed us what a human who had power and dominion over three-dimensional reality, love and humility and forgiveness,
Yeah.
who saw the interconnectedness of all life and demonstrated it. That's what humanity needs right now.
Oh,
And it can start with you, and it can start with your choice to come to Shasta with us or to redevote yourself to your practice, whatever it is. But this is the time for us to remember that we are the ones we've been waiting for.
yes. Yes. The record shared with me some time ago, and I hear other people speaking this in their own way as well. But the second coming of Jesus looks like when Christed consciousness returns through each one of us here on the planet. And there's a scientific correlation to that, to activating all 12 strands of our DNA and being able to like experience, like you said, the least of you can do all that I have done and more.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. I want to acknowledge that I asked people how they felt after your amazing breath work, Kai, and here's some feedback for you. Exquisite, Mel says. Kevin's not sure, but he feels spacious. That's great. I had a moment where the breath work was taking me. I'm like, all right, ground back in, ground back in. It was powerful today, Kai. Joy in this moment. Visualizing of blue skies. Loving this. Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let me see if there's anything else that's coming alive in my field. I'm just remembering that we want to close up the records. Um, yeah, I just dropped back into gratitude in this moment. Thank you all for hanging out with us and practicing. I know that there are tremendous ripples that get to happen from today, and be on the lookout for them. Like, ask your higher self, your guides, to help you connect the dots, help you to see the connection of the work that we're doing. I did notice in a moment when we were opening the records, that there's never been a time on the planet where so many people are tapping in and consciously bringing in, like drawing in this epic cosmic energy, this powerful blueprint from Mother Earth, and bringing it into the veins of consciousness and awareness that surround our planet. So thank you all for that. I was proud of us all for doing that. All right, bring those hands together in prayer pose. Slight pressure against left and right palm. The reason we do this is as we're closing the records, your body's going to start integrating and stabilizing in these frequencies. The slight pressure against left and right palm will create balance between the left and right hemisphere of your brain, your masculine, your feminine aspects. You want your thumbs touching each other and the heart. That's going to complete the circuitry. Okay, we want to give thanks for all knowledge and healing that comes forward in this space, and acknowledge the frequency of oneness. That means any aha moment that any of us have had in this space can become available for the collective, anyone who's ready to receive it. And with one final Om, closing the Akashic records. The records are now closed. Cool. Good work. Any final thoughts, Kai?
Well, I'd love to hear if any of the people that are watching on live or on the replay got guidance, because I got some major guidance to my question. Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I keep getting, and it's painful to be reminded of this because it's so much of like me not giving myself the gift of the work, is that for Christ consciousness, which like Christ is a Latin or Greek word that the Christos is anointed one. It's a expanded state of consciousness, which is fully in all the Aramaic teachings, this guiding field that we become receptive to, and then our life takes on this miraculous nature of synchronicity, and it is a body-based path. The fasting and the praying and the breathing and the water that we put into our bodies and the foods, it matters. As you know, as somebody said, it's like you're your soul is this hydroplasmic scalar frequency that we can measure, that is constantly trying to download into the body, but our download cable is corrupted because of the stress and the unworthiness and the food and all the ways we numb and escape. And it's so insane because we're trying to numb and escape from the greatest life, the heroic life. We're resisting it because of the paradigm of air consciousness that is so predominant. So I got, again, this is a body based game, that if we can take care of the body temple and then take the time, the most important thing you can do, brothers and sisters, every morning is create some sacred space before you touch your phone to listen. And this guy Arthur Brooks on the Modern Wisdom podcast, who's an expert on happiness, relationships, neuroscience, he lives it. And Chris, the interviewer, said, how, if we wanted to live a meaningless life, how would we do that? What would be the strategy for a meaningless life? And Arthur smiles and he pauses and he says, well, you'd wake up, you'd look at your phone immediately, you'd make sure that day not to exercise, and please don't drink any water, and certainly have no gratitude for your relationships or the people you're with. Look at your phone all day, refuse to exercise, eat poorly, stay in your stress mode, and just go to sleep watching Netflix and wake up and do it all over again. And it's laughable, and yet I think we can all know that we see ourselves in that, in the way we do meaningless life, or we do the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Get off the hamster wheel. Go on a hike. Come on this journey with us.
Yeah. Hey, Kai, meet Shanna. Shanna and her husband, Christian, and their kiddo, London, should totally be on this adventure. Like, you got to tell her to come right now. She's my cousin, actually. And I can't believe that I haven't given you personal calls about this. Shanna, you're about to get one. But your Dowdow's going to be there, right?
Yeah.
It's a great place for kids too. So yeah, talk about how did you feel like it changed Dow quickly before we wrap up? So anybody with kids out there who's thinking about potentially coming might consider bringing them.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for allowing Dow to be there, and also Jose, who we're gonna get his wily Guatemalan Mayan shaman butt on a live. He has children that are the inheritors of the timekeeper lineage. By the way, we are all, according to Jose, we are all meant to be timekeepers. What is a timekeeper? It's someone who knows the true history of humanity and knows what time it is, because if we don't know our history, we're going to repeat it. We're going to repeat it over and over again. But for Dow, I think Grace shared this on it. Like, he sat in those cacao ceremonies. He hiked the mountain on my back or in my arms. He understands that there's something sacred about water now. And Grace brought back Shasta water from her Spirit Weavers trip, and he will sometimes ask, can I please have some Shasta water? And there was a moment where we were doing a prayer at lunch, just him and I. And I said to Dow, where is God? And he said, God is in the mountains.
Oh.
And he calls it the sacred mountain. And he's got a paradigm that there's something special. He also, even though was whatever age he was, probably 4, 3, 4. He's 4, early 4. Yeah, right after his 4th birthday. That's when it happened. So, he got quiet in the ceremony. Despite his neurodivergent ass, he could feel that something special was going on. He rested into this, and that type of nervous system co-regulation transmission is, hard to do on your own as a parent. So, and now he's going to be 5. He's going to get it on a whole other level this year.
Yep. Good stuff. All right. So Shanna asked, what are the dates? It's August, take 2, August 6th through the 10th. It's over Lionsgate. This is a particular astrological alignment where we align to the star system Sirius and have access to codes that help us step into our highest potential with courage, with clarity, with creativity. And we harness those codes together on the mountain. And yes, we have lots of fun adventures, from the sacred water blessing at the very beginning of the trip. These waters have been untouched by human emotion. There is pure God consciousness water that we imbibe, to training together inside the classroom, to going on the mountain into the secret vortexes over Lion's Gate, to going into a secret pyramid for meditation specifically to manifest our highest timeline, into baptism. It's good stuff. So if you all want to know more about it, reach out to Kaya. I will share with you what the details are, and we'll see you back here again for.
Yeah. Thank you, Emily. I'm going to say, there is a vehicle that is going to leave the station, and it's going to go somewhere extraordinary. And the people who are on that vehicle are going to come back different, empowered, connected to magic. And it would just be, the vehicle's already going. It would be so good to fill the last couple seats because there's room on the bus. So jump in, find a way. Sometimes in life, the reason you can't is the reason you must. Like, yes, there's a bunch of stuff and logistics, and there's some level of financial, energetic investment, and it is going to be worth 10 times whatever it takes to make the pilgrimage. And if that's not for you to come to Shasta, take that as an invitation in your life to make your life extraordinary, especially if shit is hitting the fan and your back's against the wall. That's when it's time for magic. One of the teachings in the archetypal men's work that I do is that the path of the sage is to use the mystical to solve mundane problems. That's what quantum physics is teaching us. Wow. The mystical, which is a higher level of consciousness that sees the interconnectedness of all life, that knows that consciousness is primary and it's creating everything, the mystical is a path to solve the mundane.
Yep.
And if we forget that, life is going to be real hard. Hard.
So there's the mundane, that's the intellectual aspect of life. Then there's the metaphor. Then there's the mystical interpretation. I've been exploring information through these 3 different lenses. And it's just giving me such a full scope of what's available. And yes, when the mysticism solves the mundane, Emily gets excited.
Yeah. Let's do a little prayer for Melinda, who needs a miracle to come to Shasta. Let's just, for calling all the people, let's just take one breath for the miraculous to find everyone. And from Emily and and Grace and Jose's heart, that the last 4 people that are meant to be in the hero house with us, that they find their way. And for Melinda, whatever miracles you're needing for your life, and for anyone listening, and even for those that aren't listening, let's take a breath for the miraculous. Ready?
Yes.
In through the nose, lift that chin, take a sip through the mouth, open your arms into a power posture, swallow saliva, relax shoulders. Exhale through a pinhole, just open to receive. May the way be opened to our heroic potential, to the miraculous in our lives.
Yes.
To the final filling of these 4 seats, and to the miracles that everyone is asking for that are right there waiting. Let that vibrational escrow in. Big sigh of relief.
So good. Thank you, Kai.
Yeah,
let's hang again. Let's do this again.
Yeah. See you tomorrow.
Okay. See you back here tomorrow. All right. Bye, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Is greater cosmic mystery calling you? The mystery of your highest potential? But responsibility, stress, and EMF are distorting your vision. And the scariest thing is, during our depleted state, it's so easy to give up, to give in, and stay small. There's good news. At the Akashic Academy, we've dedicated ourselves to recovering wisdom that will help quantum visionaries, thought leaders, and difference makers thrive in the face of change. This August, come join me and the Ascended Masters in Mount Shasta for the Akashic Alchemy Immersion.
Why I went to Shasta. The Akashic Academy immersion at Mount Shasta represented a way for me to be able to work directly with Emily Harrison and a group of people like me that are looking at deepening both their wisdom and their intuition. The fact that Shasta is a mountain that's sacred to the indigenous people of North America and that it is known to have magnetic energy vortexes, that added to the mystery and the attraction of participating in the immersion. And what has happened since I got back from Shasta? I have been writing more, I have been writing better, and I've focused on developing more skills to coach effectively and empathetically. My intuition's improved. My focus on living a life of good health and acting on what is possible when I play big on my life's purposes has made life all that much more rewarding.
Why I went to Mount Shasta. I knew Shasta would be life-changing because of the potent energy there. I just needed to find the right tribe to go with. When I was in Shasta, I experienced unconditional love from within. I've built a whole company. I landed a TEDx talk. I have the ability to manifest at the drop of a hat because I tapped into the highest frequency in the vortex.